I think what happens is we get really sucked into solutions. And sometimes just by kind of taking that step back and orienting all the action we're doing back to why are we doing it? And what is it addressing? As opposed to, is it the checklist? Should I be doing it? But can it actually address something that's standing in the way to propel the business forward?
Our guest today is a CRO specialist. That's conversion rate optimization for all you note takers out there. She's the founder of Experiment Zone, a company that helps online businesses grow their revenue by improving their user experience of their website using scientific methods. Welcome to the show, AJ Davis.
Hey, Mike. Nice to be on today. Thanks for having me.
This has been a super long time coming. You're welcome, and thank you for giving us your time. I know you don't have a lot of it to give in your calendar. This is going to be a little bit, kind of call it off camera, like a heady conversation, more of a workshop, if you will. So I'm super excited because I'm like your first audience member. I'm going to be taking a ton of notes and rewatching this and taking more notes as well. But our audience is a lot of startup entrepreneurs, early stage, right? Business owners, small business owners, bigger, larger organizations as well. I love when people reach out to me and I always kind of figure out where they're at and I see the full spectrum there. So I know that people are going to really need your help because everybody has a website. Some of them are converting well. Some of them aren't converting at all. So we're really going to we have a big net today. We're fishing and we're really catching a lot. So thank you for your time being on. And I just want to let everybody know before we dive into some questions here, they can check you out at experimentzone.com. Doesn't get any easier than that. So take us back. I just want to set you up a little bit before kind of the first question too. Something I didn't mention in the intro is that prior to starting Experiment Zone back in 2017, you did lead optimization strategy for Fortune 500 companies, just to kind of set people up and get a little bit of the world of scene here. You had a tenure at Clearhead, right? Also lead user experience researcher for the Google optimized product, which is huge. So impressive resume right off the start here. I'm excited to dive into this conversation, but have a little bit better understanding, like I said. So can you also, before we get into some of that, even take us further back on the timeline, AJ, to like when you first fell in love and had a passion for user experience and research?
Yeah. I mean, when you said take you really far back, I could say like one of the things that really resonated with me when I was like 11, which is just like a fun fact about me, is learning how to do spreadsheets. So that's just like a theme in my life, is like figuring out data. I was a scorekeeper as my first job, summer job, when I was like 11 or 12, and I crunched numbers and reported it out. And it's literally what I do today. So it has been a long time coming and continues to be what I'm really passionate about.
That's funny you say that because I was wondering, I was picturing this little like 10-year-old, and I think you're a little bit younger than I am. So we had computers for most of our scholastic life, even though it started for me on the little floppy disks and all that. But I pictured you kind of being interested in that, but I didn't know your story. So that's really cool. So it starts as like doing stats, and then where did it go from there?
Yeah, so I was an economics major, so I love to think about the balance of like how human behavior intersects with like the business world and how all the systems come together. At the end of my senior year of college, I got exposed to behavioral economics. I got to interview Dan Ariely in a coffee shop in Kendall Square and in Boston. And he is an incredible person who's really hard to get time with these days. Back then, he was really generous and met with 2 undergrads, and we just like interviewed him about his book and learned all about behavioral economics. If you haven't heard about behavioral economics, it's a space where we understand that humans make decisions that are predictable but irrational. So it is really what feeds directly into conversion rate optimization. So the power of the word free is a great example.
I feel seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we all
really,
do it.
If you look at my shopping cart, there's not a lot of rational decisions that happen over on Amazon.
Yeah, and it's the little things like not being willing to pay 1 cent for something that we value more than something that's free, and we'll spend the time to like evaluate our options. So there's a lot of little things that we do. The way that having 2 choices versus 3 versus 4 influences what we do. So traditional economics would say we will be rational, like players within the space, and we'll make the best optimized choice for our utility function, to nerd out with some lingo there. But in reality, humans make decisions differently than the way that we model them to do. And so it's a really fun process to like learn about how people make decisions, to observe what they do in different contexts. So I started my career in finance, ended up going into a graduate degree in human factors and information design. So I got to really get deep into how to analyze qualitative data, became a UX researcher doing some really cool R&D work, and then took a job at Google, and then stumbled by chance at a sprint week where we were like brainstorming and working across teams with a group that was working on what became Google Optimize. And it felt like the perfect intersection of everything I loved. It was, looking at pain points and friction within a UI, coming up with ideas for what would make it better or potentially worse, and then measuring it in the real world to know whether or not the way people interact with it held up or not. I got to work on that product for several years, interviewing people doing it at some really, really big, famous companies, some smaller shops, and decided to...
Can you just identify what Google Optimize is for someone? And obviously, most people tuning in, I think everybody knows UI is user interface, UX is user experience, and we'll use a lot of that language here. But Google Optimize, you've shared what it is with me because we're obviously working together with your business, but tell the audience what that product is.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the audience has probably heard of Google Analytics, which is a tool for tracking like what people click on, what pages they go to, just the data of how people interact with your web experience. Google Optimize is the complement to that. So it is something where it allows you to display two versions of the page and to measure 50% of people seeing one experience, 50% seeing the other, and then tracking that back to Google Analytics. So you can say, if the button was blue, did people order more than if the button was red? That's the most standard example, and you actually don't want to run that test. It's a terrible test.
So is that considered A/B testing, or is that even different?
That's an A/B test. Yeah, a blue button versus a red button. Different hero copy.
And I'm sure you know, like the psychology. You've probably heard of like the red and yellow McDonald's that makes people more. You're smiling. Do you believe in that, or has that been debunked?
I totally believe in it. I'm smiling because I gave the example of red versus blue. And it is actually not a very high value experiment to drive more conversion. For really refined, big traffic sites, yes, you're going to run color-based experiments. For most of my clients, really, though, it's like, do we even talk about our products the right way in our hero? Do we have the right navigation elements? Is our checkout easy to use? So a lot of the time, it's really usability based as opposed to like higher level kind of like design psychology.
So for example, if there's a site that's just not performing well because of some major components, let's call it like if we're building a house, the foundation is not solid, but it has a different shade of red brick, it's not going to be a better house. The foundation is still... So you're laughing like, if it's a blue button or red button, dude, if this site is not built correctly, it's not going to really make a difference.
Yeah, if your kitchen's upstairs and the bedroom's in the basement, like you probably didn't design your house right to begin with. So let's start with putting the rooms in the right
nobody
spaces.
could find the front door. Exactly.
Yeah,
What about, have you ever heard the potato chip analogy, the 3 bags of chips, whatever, and then people usually land in the middle? It's like 99 cents, $3.99 or $2.99. People usually grab that $2.99 bag or whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. I remember I studied some of this and a little bit of this. And when I was in insurance, I did a couple of leadership conferences, and we always talked about buying decisions for insurance. But this was talking a little bit about more like insurance is purchased online now too. So kind of online decision making. But yeah, it's kind of that ABC. A lot of people offer it. I know I do personally for our business. We have the Pro Plan, Influencer, Elite. And no surprise, most of our clients are in the influencer plan. Do you know the science behind that as well?
Yeah, I think that comes from some of the behavioral economics research I was talking about, where is it better to show one price or 3 different prices and have them choose between those things? So there's sort of like 2 ways to think about it. You could A/B test the 3 price points you mentioned, like the 3 bags of chips at different price points, and see if on the shelf by themselves, which one gets purchased the most. A different way of setting up that A/B test is to say, should we have 3 different bags of chips at these 3 price points, or just 2 bags of chips at the same price points? And then you could imagine a whole bunch of variations where it's like, 15 bags, but they're all priced the same, versus like some sort of discounting, buy 2, get 1 free. And so all of those variations can be head-to-head A/B tests that then you would want to run, where you could really understand what factors really matter in purchasing.
Now, this is just me going off completely talking out of the sky here, just going off of feeling. Do people today, it's 2023 when we record this, who knows when someone's tuning in, and thank you everybody for being with us, whether you're listening on the audio version on all the podcast apps like Apple, Spotify, or if you're tuning in on YouTube, thank you for being with us. My question is, in 2023, I feel like people really like making decisions and having choices, maybe more than ever than in history. Is that true? Like, is that some of the psychology of it, like giving people options makes them feel more like they are in the decision? Not that we're trying to deceive or connive anybody, but like giving 3 options is not like, oh, I'm making a choice here. I'm clicking. Nobody's telling me I have to get it. Opposed to like, here's your one consultation price, come in and you get everything for that price. And they feel like either I got to do it or don't do it. Is that true?
Yeah, it's so context dependent. So I think what you just described of like doing services, hey, I want to kind of pick and choose which is going to best fit me. Maybe 3 is a good number, right? Because I can easily compare them and see the differences. Where people get into trouble with choice, though, especially in the e-com space, is you have something like, we've got 5,000 products. And so we want to tell you, here's all 5,000 of them for you to pick through and go and sort through them.
Yeah.
So I like to think about the real world analogy. If you don't have a system for saying, here's what should be at eye level, or here should be the end caps of our digital catalog, then people are just going to literally be looking through things and get really exhausted and not make a decision. So one of the things we actually do test out pretty frequently is like, what are the limited set of choices that you can point people to start? And then they can kind of find their own way to other products if that's not quite right. But maybe for 80% of people, saying, here are your 3 choices, or here are 5 top selling best packages. Those are going to be the ways that help people make decisions, and they don't get stuck in that education land of like researching and figuring it out, and they can start
too much coming at them too. Way too. It's almost like I'm thinking old school. We have the mall, right? So you park your car. You're kind of like on the internet, right? You're on Google and you're parking your car, but then like you're more specific. You're picking the kind of what area of the mall you want. The food court plus like your favorite 3 stores are over there. So then that's kind of like you're searching. You're typing in a little bit more specific, then you kind of click on that and go through that first website experience, if you will. But they're not just everything that you're going to be shopping for is coming at you at once. You have to kind of like pick what door you go into, what store you go into, and then there it starts narrowing down to like the racks of clothing you're looking at, the person who's helping you talk about what hoodie you want or what the discount is, and then down to purchasing. So that's all happening digitally. Walk our audience through this. So what would you say is kind of the steps of putting the right infrastructure in place? So the first thing we need to do is have somebody find your website, because otherwise it's on an island in the middle of nowhere. So we build the roads to it, which is SEO, search engine optimization, or search engine marketing, right? So they could do some paid ads or organic reach. So that's really step 1, right? Then once they land on your website, what's the first thing that's like, what are the 3 non-negotiables, let's say, that they need to have on their website once we get there?
Yeah. And I just want to name it for the audience, because it sounds like we've got some note takers. So what you described of that mall analogy is customer journey. So we think about that same lingo online. And so I think you're exactly right. So the first thing we got to do is get people to our island, make it not an island, through all those digital marketing tactics. That's not something that we do. It's something that there are a lot of people really good at. And so once you get to the site, you have to have a site. So you need someone to build it. You need like a developer to like put the bricks down in your mall. Yeah,
that's like the roads. Other people, you need to build the roads to get to your website. But once they get to the site, that's where you and your team come in.
And even like laying down the bricks for your website is something, again, not our team does, but like you need to have a store in order to start asking like, what should the merchandise be, and what should we name our store, and what are all those other pieces? So assuming you've got traffic, assuming you have a website that's pretty fast, right? You can walk through the door and you're not frustrated because the door is too small or it's like in the dark corner of the mall. Like assume it's fast and easy to get into.
Yeah, performance is what you're talking about there. Is it taking long to load, too many images, too much coming at you, too many boxes to click before you even know what you're doing, right? So
yeah, we've all been on our mobile devices and clicked on a website and thought, oh, maybe my data's not working, and it's really the website itself.
And now, I mean, again, in 2023, you got like, I'm going to say less than 3 seconds to make that impression. And someone's going to decide if they're giving you their time over Instagram stories right now. It's like, you don't have a lot of option to get someone's attention for more than 3 seconds, right? So
yeah, 3 seconds has been the heuristics for a while, and I think it still holds up. But the further you can push that down to something loading faster, it gives that reassurance that it's a real trusted website and that it's going to work. So
right out of the gate, performance is important, and now they're on your site.
Yeah. So if we assume performance, and if we assume you have a website and you have traffic, now we can start talking about like the design of the site and the experience. So the things that if you are out there listening and you're like wanting to pull up your own website as I talk about this, because you're going to find some stuff in this checklist that you're missing. Almost every website I go to is missing one of these 3 things. So you land on a landing page and you've got to tell people without them doing anything, just that like the content loads without scrolling. You've got to know what the website is. Is it a shoe store? Is it a podcast production company? Like, what is the what of the thing? Because if I can't find that, then I'm going to leave because I'm not sure it's for me. The second thing is, who is it for? So is it like tennis shoes for pickleball players? Great. I feel confident I should stick around because I love playing pickleball and that's what I'm looking for. But if you don't tell me that's what it's for, or if it's for someone else, then I'm probably going to leave. And then the third thing is why I should stick around to this website or to this brand as opposed to someone else. So these are pickleball shoes for pickleball players, for people who are top competitors and want shoes that'll hold up on a good tournament on like great services, right? That differentiator.
Now that sounds so simple and basic, but I'm thinking I know I could tighten my site up right away just hearing that. That third piece is or maybe the second piece of more identifying, because you'll understand when you land on socialchameleon.us that it's podcasting done for you, and that we take care of all that good stuff, and you don't have to worry about it. But who exactly is it for? And so it should have something about entrepreneurs, influencers, keynote speakers, like our target audience should have some key thing. So then they're like, okay, now why am I choosing you over the other? Is where it gets a little bit more into the rest of the site. So that's really, really good stuff, guys. Like, go back, maybe re-listen to that last 2 minutes there, because AJ just gave you some really good stuff to think about. Now, if people know that and they're hanging around, you got them. Now we're talking, they're on your site for 10 seconds. Do you feel that this is the biggest drop off? Like, a lot of the mice go to get the cheese, but then you don't know why they're not eating it, kind of thing. They're all on the site, but now everyone says, well, nobody's clicking or nobody's converting, or they're stuck in the shopping cart. Is that kind of where the biggest problem lies right there?
It's all the above. So one of the things we need to do is set up a curated journey. So if you picture, what's a favorite like box store you like that you think we should talk through?
Man, I don't know. Maybe we could talk about like going to get your Christmas shopping for your first child or something.
Okay. So you're in a store that specializes in like Christmas decor. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
And we're going to say it's like a physical store. And so if you walk in and all it is, there's no aisles, right? It's just stuff, like the stuff just piled up, like you don't know where to go. But
it's
then
funny because we've been to those
those
stores after the holidays when everything basically looks like that. Yeah.
Because they don't care, because they know price is going to get you, right? You'll put the energy up for friction because your intent to purchase is so high because you know the cost is a good discount. So assuming
on an average day you're going in, if it looked like that, that's obviously chaos. But no, so they're going to have organized shelves. There's a seasonal section. I'm kind of picturing this in my head. Christmas time, you got your first child. You're all excited to get ready for Christmas. And yes, it's going to be very clearly marked, right? And
there's going to be paths. There's going to be sections that might represent like, oh, I want to have like decor for my kitchen versus like gift wrap versus other things. So you start to organize your products in a way that's meaningful and in categories that people have mental models of already. So rather than teaching them that wrapping paper and kitchen supplies are in the same aisle, like that those things somehow are connected, you instead organize your store according to how people think about things themselves. So same with the website. You would have different kind of categories or navigation sections that correspond. So one of the things to like even get in the door though is you need a door. right? Like you need to like, hey, here's my shopping cart. Let me start walking around these aisles. So coming back to the landing page, so you have the 3 elements we talked about. Once you do that, people need to know which direction of the store you want them to go to. And so calls to action or buttons are frequently the way that we do this. And so for those of you following along with your own website, one of my favorite things to do is a squint test. This is like the cheapest kind of research you could possibly do is you sit back from your computer, you look at the page and you squint and you say, what is the thing that's jumping out to me on this page? And that has to be the call to action. There has to be enough visual contrast, size contrast, color contrast to draw your attention to the thing that's going to be you hand-holding, as if you are maybe the greeter at this Christmas shopping store. And that greeter would say, hey, you're here to buy your child's first ornament. Let me take you to this section to find it, right?
Yeah, it's almost like someone hands you like a photograph and they take it away after 2 seconds. Like, name things that you saw in the photograph. And like you want them to see your product should stand out, or the decision to click on it and learn more. The call to action, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that's the kind of thing where like if a lot of companies, especially earlier stage companies, don't really know what they're asking people to do. They say, oh, I want them to learn about me, and eventually they'll fill out my contact us form. We should actually start by saying, fill out my contact form, so that when people come to your site, they know what you do, who you do it for, why you're better. And then they know what action you're asking for. So you're saying, hey, if all this resonates with you, I want you to book a meeting with me. Most people are going to go, okay, I'm not quite ready. And then they're going to find the information they need, which we have to structure in a really curated way. But in the back of their mind, they know that when they're ready to take action, the action you want is for them to book a meeting. So again, one of the things that happens frequently is like we think there's a specific journey of introduce content, write a lot of story, tell me all about why I started the company. Here's our latest news. Oh, by the way, book a meeting. And we want to start with, hey, book a meeting. So that way people will remember and start taking action towards the thing you want them to do.
That works better in dating or meeting someone and asking for the date or whatever later. You wouldn't want to do it the other way around, where you just meet someone and you're like, hey, I want to take you on a date. And you're like, whoa, hey, I don't even know who you are yet, right? But in this, it's different. It's just showing that the context is so important, and the functionality of a relationship is important. Here we're talking about an online product, and you need to let them know, because we know we got 10 seconds or less to at least let them know that there's this form there and it's not buried on page 17.
Right. And it's the same thing as a physical store. So if you picture any store where we're taking this Christmas shopping analogy to, the register is at the front. They know you're not going to start there, but they want you to know that's why you're here. You're here to buy something.
Oh, that's really cool. I never thought about that psychology of it. Yeah.
You know, we've been talking about shopping and e-commerce because I think we've all been shoppers in physical stores and online. So you can kind of see how it all holds up. But if you are a business that does lead generation, it's the same thing. Like if you have a lead magnet or a giveaway or schedule a meeting with me, you want to still put that up front so people know why you're there.
This is so good. We're going to take a quick 2-minute timeout. We'll be right back. We're going to give our sponsor some love. We'll be right back with AJ Davis.
Podcasting is a great way to engage with your audience and stay consistently relevant. The only problem is you don't have the time or desire to produce your own show. You simply want it done for you. And that's where Social Chameleon comes in. All you need to do is press record and upload the files. We'll handle the rest. From planning, production, post-production, distribution, and digital marketing, we have you covered. We realize that times are tough and funds are tight. And Social Chameleon believes in building supportive business relationships. By clicking on the link in this promo, we'll provide you 7 free podcasting tips to get started, as well as a free 30-minute online consultation. This is the perfect opportunity for entrepreneurs, keynote speakers, industry experts, influencers, and anybody who has a personal brand. With Social Chameleon, we help you build a brand that is out of this world. We're ready and waiting, so what are you waiting for? Click on the link to get started today. Hey guys, it's Mike. I'd like to give a proper shout out to Navigator Bookkeeping. Look, for a long time, I ran my business without really understanding the full financial picture. I used my gut and my bank account balance to make decisions, which led to some poor choices and constant stress over my business's finances. I knew something needed to change. At the beginning of 2021, I made a decision that helped pave a more clear path for my business. I started working with Navigator Bookkeeping. Since then, my bookkeeping has been handled for me. I now understand the full financial story of my business, making important financial decisions much easier now, and it helps me plan for where my business is going. I highly recommend giving Navigator Bookkeeping an opportunity to help your business. Check them out at navigatingyourbooks.com. Again, that's navigatingyourbooks.com. It's time to know the full financial story of your business.
All right, we are back in action with AJ Davis. Remember, you can connect with her and Experiment Zone. In the show notes, I have that all clickable for you, so you don't have to worry about that. How about that for some user experience? I got it clickable. You don't have to search for it. It's right there for you. All right, so I want to hear a little bit more about you. We got some really great information there, and we're kind of like landing the plane, if you will, and we're running a little bit out of time. So just real quick, I want to know some of the keys to your early success as a CEO. You launched about 6 years ago, and you've been doing really well. So people that are tuning in and starting their company, with some, what can you say, these specific things that I can really take away from my success? Yeah.
I feel like Mike did not set me up to say this answer, but I'm going to answer it honestly. And so one of the things that I am finding is that when I started Experiment Zone, I kind of had this idea of like, you got to do all the marketing tactics to get people to find out about you. You've got to go to conferences. You've got to do the thing. You got to write the blog posts, all the things. And the things that I have found to be the best use of my time, the most fun, and the most authentic to who I am as an entrepreneur is podcasting. And so at the beginning, I didn't do it. It wasn't on the checklist. Right. I didn't think it was necessary. And it has turned out to be just like such a wonderful way to meet people, network in a way where you're giving and they're getting something. But podcasters are connectors. Like Mike knows a whole bunch of really cool people, and he's going to remember the conversation. We got to go deeper on things than if we were just bumping elbows at a conference. So I'll say podcasting is my answer to that. It's the real answer.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that. It's funny. That was actually my next question, is the power of podcasting. So you jumped right into
nailed it.
So yeah, power of podcasting, it's really the power of people, right? People are connectors. Like you said, podcasting is a great way to learn someone's story. Like if you and I had 3 minutes at a conference together, I'm not asking you much about, tell me when you're 10 years old and you got this idea and you're doing stats at a sporting event and that got you like, but that is something I'll always remember, is that you have this really cool story. For the Star Wars nerds out there, it's like AJ's a Jedi of user experience and experimentation, A/B testing, because you've been through it all the way from the first time you ever held that lightsaber and your dream was built, and so I know this about you, and I knew a little bit of your backstory because I worked on a different show that you've had. We're going to talk about your new show in a minute, but it's so true. You get to know, like, I'm just going to, for 1 second, talk about Mic'd Up. I have over 170 episodes out, almost 180 probably. When this is out, it'll be over 180. And those are people I have in my phone. I can text. I can wish them, happy Thanksgiving. They respond. They ask about, how's Isabel doing? What are you guys up to in Philly or in Buffalo? People know who you are. And it still ranges, just like all relationships. There's some people that are closer friends, and there's some people that may just kind of remember having a good conversation with you. But it is true. It's not that you do it to take advantage of someone's connections or anything. It's really building genuine connections that may become business partners, a client, a referral. But when you don't really come at it that way, that's why when I talk about podcasting for folks, it's like the benefit that you can monetize will come. And a lot of times it comes further down the road, but it helps you build these really healthy connections and conversations. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Getting to know you a little bit better. What are a couple non-negotiables, like aside from sleep and eating and showering and all the key ones, right? But some of the rocks that are in your calendar that like, do you have AJ Zen time? What makes you so productive? I know you're highly productive when you work, you're on. So what are some of your non-negotiables every day?
I'll start with the personal stuff, because I think that having stuff that drives you and that you love drives your work too. So for me, like those cuddles and walks with my dogs are huge. I have 2 dogs that are dachshund mixes, and they just like light up every day, and they're so happy to see me, and it just like brings this energy to every part of my day. I mentioned pickleball already. I'm a huge pickleball fan. I actually
I was wondering where that came from.
I know,
That's really cool. I love
I try to drop it
pickleball
in
too.
every conversation. We're known for that. You can never get away with not talking about pickleball when you're really into it.
I would love to play pickleball with you at some point. We got to make that happen.
Yeah, for sure. I love it. It's a huge part of who I am and how I show up in the world too. And then like in terms of like work and staying focused and grounded, I think one of the things that I often share with other entrepreneurs is this idea of an MIT, or most important thing. It's an idea that was borrowed. So it's not something original in any way, but it's the idea of like writing down at the start of your day, what's the one thing I have to do today, and holding yourself accountable to that. Because as entrepreneurs, we have a bunch of stuff that pops up that's really urgent, but sometimes we need to really make sure we get the important thing done. And that for me has been the difference maker in making sure the business is growing and moving forward.
Yeah, it's those 4 quadrants, right? Important and urgent, opposed to not important. And we got all the 4 different places we can live. That's really good insight as well. And I appreciate you. I'm not surprised to hear that, because I know whenever you and I have a meeting, it's focused and we get 15-minute sessions. And I don't meet with anybody else in the week in 15 minutes or less, but you and I always do it. And it's focused and we come away with a ton of notes. And shout out to Karen on your team. She is fantastic. And I want her to clone herself so she can join Social Chameleon, because she's a really great note taker and very present in her meetings. So shout out to Karen. I'm not sure if you have a book out, so share if you do, or if you have the plans to put a book out, because I think you'd be a great author and put all this information into it. So that's number 1.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I haven't. And that is one of those things that like a lot of people are like, oh, you should share your ideas. So I think maybe you're nudging me to take some more action on that. A lot of my ideas are captured in being podcast guest or blog posts and things like that. My favorite thing to do, honestly, though, is just to meet with people one-on-one. And like, I'm happy to always share 30 minutes of my day to get to know someone, get to know what they're working on, share what I've learned along my journey, hear how I might be able to help them. So I think the offer I would make is like, if anyone listening today is like, hey, AJ seems like someone who might be able to help me out, whether it's talking about how to structure your time or actually something about CRO or the pickleball world, you can message me on LinkedIn or through our website. And I'm always happy to chat. I feel like personal connection and really digging into the details is really a lot of fun.
I mean, books are great, but guys, that's way better than a book. A book doesn't talk back if you have a question and you're like, oh my God, I get what they're saying, but I wish I could ask them a question. AJ just said, go to LinkedIn, send her a DM, let her know that you heard this conversation, that you're interested in more information. Don't just go to their website, but AJ's opening up the opportunity for a 30-minute call with her, like take that. And that is not something that most people will give out, especially just for free to connect with somebody. So that's amazing for you to do that. Thank you for offering that to the audience. Now, talking about books, this is the bow on the episode right here. So you're the author and protagonist in your own life story, and you get to write the ending, and God willing, you continue to live a long and prosperous life. You're looking back on it, you're reflecting, and you get to define your legacy. What would that be?
Oh, that's such a good one, right? That's like can I really answer that in a minute? I think for me, like the thing that I want to be remembered for is someone who is really intentional about growth and trying things out, trying them on for size, experimenting with them. So literally it's in the name of my business. Literally being an entrepreneur is an experiment. But I'll leave with this like personal anecdote, which is when I was 16, I realized that there was a lot of things in life that I was nervous or afraid to do. And every year on my birthday since turning 16, I've done something I've never done before.
Wow, that's awesome.
And it's enriched every aspect of my life. I've found new hobbies, I've found new friends, new community. But I'm just turned into someone who's just going to jump up and say yes. I'll jump up and say yes on the improv stage. I'll jump up and say, I'll jump out of the airplane with you. And so I don't know how to boil that down, but the idea of like curiosity, adventure, and growth, that's how I want to be remembered.
That is so good. It's a great reminder, because I feel like, especially as a business owner, I know I get so stuck in, and this isn't a complaint, I love what I do, but we get so much into the routine and the action items that need to be taken. And it kind of a little bit becomes a little bit of a callous, and like just to get outside of that, especially on your birthday, go try something new. It just invigorates life back into our wind into our sails, if you will. And that just hearing you talk about it, it's like, yeah, I want to do something that I haven't either tried or done in a while. I have a friend, actually, I interviewed her, Ann Bernard. I'm not sure if you know Ann Bernard, but she has, I don't know if it's a show or if it's just a little social media kind of shorts that she does, but they're called 365 Firsts. So literally every day she does something for the first time and she kind of like records it or talks about it. So and they could be micro things. It could be like, I'm trying a new kind of green tea today, but it's just kind of forcing you a little bit to have new experiences, which is really, really cool. All right. Last bonus question. Somebody's all the way here at the end of the episode. Thank you guys for being with us again. And they're kind of struggling. They're like, man, I don't know if I got into this business too soon, or things are just looking a little bit dark right now, and they're just not sure like how they're going to get out of it. What would you say to someone if they know it's their dream? Let's say you're talking to yourself in 2016, 17, you're launching your business, little rocky in the beginning. In this example, what would you say to somebody?
Yeah, the exercise I'd give them, because I think we all have the answers in ourselves, is to write down what your goal is. Like, what are you trying to achieve with your business? What are the problems that stand in your way? And then what's the solution or the current idea for what the solution could be? So a GPS. Because I think what happens is we get really sucked into solutions. And sometimes just by kind of taking that step back and orienting all the action we're doing back to why are we doing it? And what is it addressing? As opposed to, is it the checklist? Should I be doing it? But can it actually address something that's standing in the way to propel the business forward? So a little GPS activity is what I would recommend.
I am not surprised that you have an acronym for it and that you also would go to the stats of it, write it down, map it out.
Okay.
That's what you do, and you do it really well. And I'll tell you what, no matter what you do in life, I know a lot of times I'm a little bit more of the make decisions from the heart and stuff like that, but it has to have the science side of it that backs it up and the stats that back it up too. And I know like a lot of the mentors I've worked with, every single one has always said, if you want to get somewhere, you have to literally know exactly, it could be to the dollar amount. Like by the end of the year, what's the dollar amount that you would like to have that you make that would be more than where you're at? Because if you say, I want to make more money this year, you have nothing, your brain doesn't know what to solve for. But if you say, I need to make $42,000 more because that will pay all my debt off, plus I can save 10 grand, and that's your goal. Like, how do you know 42? And if you don't know that, you're going to really have a hard time getting there. But if you know it, like in any sport, you know what the strategy is, you know what the goal is. In baseball, you got to get runners around the bases, but you have 3 stops on the way. If you don't tell someone that, can you imagine playing baseball? There's people just running around, they're going backwards, like a little kid in Little League, they go third base, second base, first, and back home. They're like, look, I did it. And you're like, oh, you did it backwards. But that's kind of like us. If we don't have systems in place, like AJ is talking about, we'll run the bases backwards and think we're doing the right thing. So this, I want to say, AJ, no smoke here. This is true. I've done like 180 episodes, and this is one of my favorite ones, especially because of how detailed the conversation was. You were really good at with just giving the answers, not a lot of fat on the bone, if you will. And I think this is one of the most important things for anyone who listens to our show. There's been some fun conversations and amazing guests on the show. Sometimes it gets a little bit more fun than it does real practical. This was a masterclass today of practicality. And I know I'm going to apply a lot of this stuff to my website and my business. And I know anybody that listens in today and does the same will benefit from you. Guys, remember AJ Davis, experimentzone.com. Any last words before you run?
Get out there and do it. That's it.
Get out there and do it.
Thanks for having me on, Mike.
Thank you so much, guys. I'll leave you with this. You know what to do. Be great and be grateful. Thanks, AJ. Grateful for you.
I'd like to give a huge shout out to everyone for tuning in, especially those who listen all the way to the end to hear this message. Seriously, I appreciate you, and my guests do as well. Giving a quick reminder to subscribe to this show. It's completely free and will allow you to receive notifications when new episodes are released. If you'd like to provide a tip as a gift, you can do so via patreon.com/micedup. It's spelled MIKED up. Patreon.com/micedup. You can give as little as $1 per month or as much as you'd like. Every dollar is greatly appreciated and completely unexpected. Appreciate your reviews and your messages coming in on social as well. Keep them coming. Your feedback is valuable and absolutely means the world to me. You can check out more episodes and content at mikeduppodcast.com. We're powered by Social Chameleon. You can also follow me on Instagram. That's where I'm the most active, and it's at Mike DiCioccio, MikeDiCioccio. Thank you so much for your continued support. You guys know what to do. Be great and be grateful.